Promise of Music Forum, and this is our session on El Sistema at 50, the movement that started it all. My name is Glenn Morley, and I'm the past president of the Glenn Gould Foundation, which in 2008 awarded Dr. Antonio Abreu the Glenn Gould Prize. And that started off a whole lot of things for us here in Canada with regard to El Sistema. And we got that over with. Okay. Working now? One of the things about working with El Sistema is you discover it's not just about music or education or anything else. We discovered that putting on a huge presentation in 2009 at the foundation, it was transformational for the Glenn Gould Foundation as well. And it transformed the foundation and the prize into being recognized as the Nobel Prize for the Arts. And that is as transformational as any of the other kinds of things that happen when the very touch of El Sistema hits an organization. Not too much more to say other than I would like to welcome our moderators for this morning, Mr. Eric Booth and Tricia Tunstall, and they are the publishers of the worldwide newsletter of El Sistema, the Ensemble, and a panel of leaders, and actually an extraordinarily distinguished panel who will introduce themselves when they come out, from international El Sistema programs around the world. So please give a warm welcome to our moderators and the panel.
Maybe come down, come a little closer so not so spread out. Thank you for coming together, and welcome to a panel that looks at El Sistema Venezuela at age 50 and still young, the movement that started it all. We have a panel of international leaders. We're going to hear from all of them. We're going to address questions about the growth of this global movement. And before we get into our planned panel, we have a surprise distinguished visitor that was most appropriate to start off this session. A leader from El Sistema Venezuela is with us. I'm going to do a very small and inadequate introduction to Leonardo Hurtado, who began in El Sistema at age 8, and at age 11, he became the director of the orchestra at his home nucleo in Guárico State, the youngest ever national academic manager of a Simón Bolívar program at age 11. For years, he was the chair of the thought of Maestro José Antonio Abreu until 2019, and he is currently the academic music director of El Sistema. May I introduce Leonardo Hurtado. And immediately to his right is Ron Davis Alvarez, one of our panel guests, who is heroically stepping in to translate.
I will do my best.
It will come.
Thank you very much.
Bueno, primeramente honrados de estar acá en este primer congreso, y es un honor y es un privilegio poder ver la historia reflejada en una actividad tan poderosa y tan hermosa como la que está sucediendo ahora.
It's a very honor and privilege to be here in activities with this powerful of the history of what we have at the moment.
Sí, para poder hablar del sistema y de la excelencia musical, necesariamente hay que hablar de la razón y del debate social.
Principally, to talk about el sistema, we have to talk about the principal reason and the social debate.
Por eso el maestro definía el sistema como un fenómeno sociológico de gran magnitud.
And that's why Maestro Abreu defined el sistema as a phenomenon of a social phenomenon with the grand magnitude.
Por eso, para el maestro, en el corazón del maestro Abreu el convencimiento de que la raíz de todo problema social está conectado de alguna forma a una manera o forma de exclusión.
In the thoughts on the heart of Maestro Abreu, it was always the reason of a social problem on issue, and the root is coming from a problem of exclusion.
Por eso citaba a la Madre Teresa de Calcuta cuando decía que lo más trágico de la pobreza no es la falta de pan o de techo, sino el sentirse nadie.
And that's why he was quoted the Mother Teresa of Calcutta, who was mentioning that the difficulty of poverty is not the shortages of food, of bread. It's the shortages of a spiritual soul.
Por eso el fundamento transformador está en la invitación que el maestro siempre hizo a que todos fuésemos incluidos en la vivencia de la música.
And that's why the transformative element of the program it has to be to feel included.
De allí que hoy organizacionalmente y tengo la responsabilidad de dirigir esa sección, ese conjunto del sistema, hoy tenemos 15 programas académicos cuyo sentido es dar fuerza al principio de inclusión.
Since I have the opportunity to lead this department and be a director, we have 15 programs where our principles and visions is the inclusion.
Hablar de la historia del sistema, 50 años se dice fácil, pero son 50 años de lucha, de esfuerzo y dedicación en la búsqueda cierta de que todos los niños del mundo puedan vivir la experiencia de la música.
To talk about the 50 years of the history of El Sistema, you can say it easily, but it's not as easy as you says, because it's to tell about the transformation of the child and give the opportunity to every child of the globe, of the planet, to have this opportunity.
Cuando hablamos del maestro Abreu, generalmente hablamos del hombre emprendedor o del anciano sabio luchador incansable.
When we talk about Maestro Abreu, we are thinking about entrepreneur, a person, but also a person who never got tired.
Pero pocas veces conocemos y hablamos del maestro niño, del maestro que soñó la gran obra.
But nevertheless, we never talk about Maestro José Antonio Abreu when he was a child and how he experienced the childhood.
Entonces, la historia del sistema la podemos resumir o resumir su esencia en la historia del niño que soñó compartir lo hermoso de la música con todos los niños del mundo.
So there is the essence of El Sistema we can resume as this dream of a child who wanted to be cheering to all children around the world.
Por eso contar la historia del sistema es contar la historia de cada uno de nosotros que tuvo la oportunidad junto a un gran conglomerado de ser tocado por la música.
That's why to tell the story of El Sistema, it's the opportunity to be able to share, opportunity of each of us to share how music touches us.
Ahora quiero contar una historia. Esta historia la narra el maestro José Antonio y quiero pedirles por favor que presten atención porque quiero hacer una dinámica para compartir acá en este corto tiempo.
That's why I would like to share an story or a memory from Maestro José Antonio Abreu that I would like you to pay attention because it's a really important thought.
Sí. Esta historia es el sentir de un niño venezolano hace más de 80 años.
This story, it's about the Venezuelan kids and the feel of Venezuela, the sense of Venezuela, like almost 80 years ago.
Sí, si quiere la lees.
From Maestro José Antonio Abreu. I was a violin student in the 1950s in the little orchestra of the Lara State School of Music. I sat next to a girl who was 5 years old ahead of me in violin. At the beginning, I suffered a lot because I could only play 2 out of every 10 notes. Then the human experience of rehearsing, followed by the artistic and the musical experience, and preserving the functionality of our own instruments in the instrumental ensemble, and beginning to seriously explore to the world of harmony, counterpoints, the world of concentration and of the structural analysis produce in us an enormous impulse to studies and advance. So after 3 months, I was already playing with Pastora Guanipa, who was that girl. With traditional school training, I will have taken me at least 3 years to reach the 5th position on the violin. But I got there in less than a year because of the challenge of playing.
Lo hermoso de esta narrativa, de este cuento, es ver cómo él comienza hablando de yo y luego termina hablando de nosotros.
The beautiful part of this history, of this memory, is that he started to talk about himself, but ends talking about ourselves.
Y ese párrafo revela en la visión pequeña o la visión de maqueta lo que es la esencia profunda del sistema.
And that paragraph just describes the essence, the deep essence of our Sistema.
Ahora, voy a preguntar dentro del panel y con el público, si tuviéramos que colocar un título a esta historia, ¿cuál sería su título?
I will kind of ask to the panel or to our audience if you have to choose a title to this memory or history, what you could put it.
Eric.
So a title for those memories and that story, is that the question?
Yes, like put a title. If you have to put a title to this memory, what will be the names?
A combination of art and heart, maybe, gives birth to El Sistema.
Eric.
The new chapter of possibility.
El nuevo capítulo de posibilidades.
El maestro Abreu nos invitó en todo tiempo a despertar la creatividad gerencial.
El maestro Abreu invited us all the time to awake our interest of management.
Yo voy a colocar mi título, inspirado en poder vivir de cerca la guía del maestro.
I will write a title of this inspired in the guide of Maestro José Antonio Abreu.
La paradoja de la rueda de Aristóteles.
The paradox of Aristoteles, of the wheel of Aristotle. Oh, I don't know if that's correct. Sorry for my translation.
La explico rápido.
I explain really quickly.
Imagínate la rueda de un tractor con un diámetro de 1,80, la rueda.
Imagine a wheel of a tractor.
Sí. Ahora, si yo la hago rodar desde aquí hasta acá,
If you made that to run from here to there,
probablemente daría 1, 2, 3.
probably will do 3 revolution. Will
Sí.
probably do 3 revolution. Yeah.
Ahora, imagina esta tapita
Ahora imagine this.
y la hacemos rodar un diámetro de 2,5 centímetros. ¿Cuántas vueltas daría?
Imagine if you had to do now with the 2 diameters, how many
wow. 50.
revolution will do? 20, 50.
Ahora, si yo la pongo en el medio de la rueda grande
Imagine if I put it in the middle of the big wheel,
y la hago rodar,
and then I help it. I help it
¿cuántas
to
daría la
revolution.
tapita pequeña?
How many rotation will do?
Las mismas que la rueda grande.
The same as the bigger one.
La visión del maestro Abreu era que tú, yo y todos
And the vision of Maestro Abreu was the you and me and everyone and us.
debemos concertar la voluntad. Unir la voluntad.
To unite la voluntad, volunteers. Yes.
Y ese es el fundamento socializador. Si eso no está, no hay transformación.
And that is the transforming social fundamental.
El doctor Eduardo Méndez les manda un saludo
The Dr.
cordial.
Eduardo Méndez, who is the executive director and the head of El Sistema in Venezuela, sends greetings to
Y
you.
Andrés David les manda un abrazo junto a los niños de Venezuela.
And Andrés David sends all the hugs from the Venezuelans children.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maestro. And thank you for the group translation assistance.
Thank you very much. I'm no professional translator, but I'm very happy to help.
And we begin with that origin of El Sistema as it began in Maestro Abreu, and now we take a sense of its growth. A quick self-introduction of the people on our panel. I'm Eric Booth, a co-founder of the newsletter The Ensemble, and co-author of that book that's sitting there, and work with Sistema programs around the world.
I'm Tricia Tunstall. I'm the other co-author of the book and also co-founder and editor of the Ensemble newsletter. I'm a music educator, writer, and I write mostly about this amazing movement that Leonardo has described.
Good morning. My name is Nick Skinner, and I'm the Vice President and founding team member of the Orchids program with the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra.
Good morning. I'm Vicky Williams. I am a founding member of Sistema Scotland and now the Chief Executive.
Good morning. My name is Tina Fedeschi, and I'm the co-founder and artistic managing director of Orchestra.
Hi, my name is Ron Davis Alvarez. I'm from Venezuela. I'm the founder of a Dream Orchestra and also the leader of the largest summer music camps with the Gothenburg Symphonic, and a founder of programs in orchestra in Greenland.
And translator.
And today, helper.
When we talk about the El Sistema-inspired movement around the world, we're really talking about two components. One is the growth over 50 years of El Sistema Venezuela's influence on programs all around the world, from Greenland to New Guinea, and a number of other programs that sprang up from the same inspiration, but were not directly inspired by Venezuelans' example. But they've arisen together to become one global movement at this point.
We have not yet arrived at Maestro Abreu's goal of every child in the world having this sort of opportunity, but we have it. You may be surprised at how far and wide this movement has spread. I want to give you just a few facts and figures. In Latin America, there are programs in at least 18 countries. In Europe, Sistema Europe has 48 member programs operating in 28 countries. In the United States, we have 150 member programs of El Sistema USA, and in Africa there are programs in about 10 countries that we know of. In Asia, large programs in Korea, the Philippines, Japan, and smaller ones in many, many other places. So if we want to count by countries where there are Sistema-inspired or similar programs, there are probably at least 60 or 70, probably more. If we want to count by programs, hundreds and hundreds. Definitely on every continent except Antarctica, and growing every day, as we know. So I think that's it for that question.
Okay. We're going to take a tour down our panel to offer the way that they personally got connected to El Sistema Venezuela. I'll start first. My first trip to Venezuela was 2007. I went as a bit of a skeptic, and on my first day realized I had discovered the single most extraordinary accomplishment in arts learning I'd ever seen in my life, and dedicated a big part of the rest of my life to sharing that around the world.
And my story is similar. I was introduced to the phenomenon of Gustavo Dudamel in 2008. A friend took me to Carnegie Hall to hear him, and he was so extraordinary that I needed to know where he came from and what that story was, and that pulled me right into this, this whole Venezuelan phenomenon that we know about.
Yeah, El Sistema, when Orchid started, was really just a whisper in the United States. No one really knew what it was. And really, we were drawn in by the idea of using a program to engage our community. I really have to thank Roberto Zambrano, who was really a mentor of so many of us, who allowed us to come down to Venezuela to see it firsthand, study it, and really take those guiding principles back to Baltimore to start our program.
Similarly, we have a long history with our friends in Venezuela, and I actually had applied for this job with this new thing in Scotland, Sistema Scotland. What is this? And I got the job and got a letter saying, like, your first day, be at the airport for this time. You're going to Caracas for 9 days. So this whole new team, we met for the first time at the airport. Oh, wow. And we spent the next 9 days just completely immersed in this world. And at the time, I was thinking, what a strange way to start this job. But, actually we came back and we were so inspired and so ready to go. And I think if we hadn't been there and seen that firsthand, especially at that time where there wasn't so many Sistema programs around Europe, I think it really shaped us as a team, and most of us still work there. So, yeah, it had massive impact.
Oh, wow. For me, it was a lot of stars joining together. I walked in from after coaching the Ottawa Youth Orchestra, and I walked into a room, and the CBC was giving a CD review of the Simon Bolivar Youth Orchestra playing Beethoven 5, and I didn't know who was playing. I just heard this amazing recording, and I heard Youth Orchestra, and Youth Orchestra had transformed my life. So I was really interested in youth orchestras, so I went, oh my God, Youth Orchestra. Then I heard Venezuela, and my sister had moved to Caracas a few weeks earlier. And then I heard Deutsche Grammophon and went, holy moly, who is this? And so very soon after that, I went to visit my sister and became involved and visited one of the nucleos and went to the concerts and taught a little bit there and was completely transformed, and that was the decision made. Yeah.
My experience is coming from the inside of El Sistema. How I met El Sistema? Well, my grandmother, she lost a child in one of the barrios of Caracas, and we moved a lot when I was a kid. And then she opened a kiosco. It was not a kiosco in Venezuela. You just open selling ice cream that you handmade it, and then you open the window and then you sell it. And I was helping her after school when I was 7. So, and every time I was helping after school with that, I always saw from the window kids that was going in a bus with a white and the Venezuelan flag and medal, and also I hear them talking about Sibelius, Beethoven, and I didn't know that they were dead. I was thinking they were so alive because they was so happy to talk about people that I didn't know. But I actually didn't know what was happening in front of my grandmother's house, and I always wanted to go there. And so that was my first encounter with El Sistema, because when I came then, it was El Sistema Nucleo.
Wow, beautiful. Wow. This is where El Sistema began. 50 years ago, this is a rehearsal with José Antonio Abreu directing a youth orchestra. The founding story, some of you may know, he invited young musicians, Venezuelan trained musicians, to join a youth orchestra. Only 11 showed up. They practiced in a parking garage in Caracas, and he promised them if they worked hard and brought their friends, they would become a great orchestra, and indeed they did. And this is the very early days. I don't know if that's actually the parking garage, but that's where it began. And we were saying backstage, one thing happened that exploded the story of El Sistema out into the wider world, and that was a video. I'm going to show you a clip of that video when the Simón Bolívar Symphony Orchestra in 2007 performed at the London Proms and created such a sensation that the video went viral and people began to talk about. Rumors had been about, but suddenly it was galvanized. Let's take a look at 2 minutes of a part of that performance. That's what exploded El Sistema Venezuela onto a wide world platform, people asking, is it legal to have that much fun on stage? Is it possible to have that much engagement and enthusiasm in classical music? And the answer has been an increasing yes to that question. Tricia, other ways that the Venezuelan model spread around the world?
Right. Well, even before that amazing phenomenon, word had been spreading, especially among the classical music establishment in Europe. And the great conductors Simon Rattle and Claudio Barro visited Venezuela in the late 90s, I think, and started working with them, helping José Antonio Abreu shape the kinds of orchestras that he wanted to shape in terms of musical excellence. But they were dazzled, so he needed their expertise, but they, these eminent European conductors, were dazzled by exactly what Eric was talking about, the unbelievable passion and fun and ardor with which they played. And so those visitors came, they took the news back. At the same time, during those years, the 90s and early 2000s, the neighboring Latin American countries were hearing about this, and Maestro Abreu was sending teams of his trusted advisors and best conductors to help start El Sistema programs in those countries. And then in 2009, two key things happened, at least two. Number one was Maestro Abreu won the TED Prize, which meant two things. He gave a TED Talk, which you should look up on YouTube as soon as you get home. There are excerpts from it. And it's, in its eloquence and ardor and philosophical and emotional heft and depth, Leonardo was sharing some of that with us. It is unlike anything any of us have ever heard, and powerful as hell. So that TED Talk went viral. And then the second thing that happened was that he got a $50,000 award for the TED Prize. He donated that to the New England Conservatory of Music in Boston to start a fellowship, it lasted for 5 years? For 5 years, called the Sistema Fellows, that would train young musicians from all around the States in the thoughts and precepts of, and ways of teaching, pedagogies of El Sistema. So those 50 young people who went into the Abreu Fellowship for the next 5 years were certainly disciples around the United States. They all went out and started programs, and their friends started programs, so that really spread it in the States. Also, Maestro Abreu was during that time getting lots of prizes. He got the Polar Prize from Sweden. He got the Glenn Gould Prize right here from the Glenn Gould Foundation in 2009 also. Sweden's Polar Award, I mentioned, Holland's Erasmus Prize, Spain's Asturias Awards, many, many more. Those spread the fame of Maestro Abreu and the Sistema around Europe, and in the last 15 years there have been a bunch of documentary films. So the word and the images and the language of El Sistema has been sort of steadily spreading out across the world. In the last 5 to 10 years, I would say, there's been a sort of diaspora from Venezuela of leaders and leading conductors, leading teachers, master teachers who have gone to other places around the world, sometimes remote places. There's one in Papua New Guinea, sometimes established places like Lisbon, Portugal. But everywhere they go, they spread this amazing combination of pedagogy, spirit, heart, and social ambition.
In a moment, we're going to hear about each of the programs on our panel. But first, a question, a short answer for what has been the most important or influential part of the Venezuelan model on your program?
The most influential part, I'd have to say, is definitely the idea of the ensemble. That everything drives towards the ensemble, really as a metaphor for how your community can come together to make something beautiful. So I would say everything we do at the Orchids program over the past 18 years has been geared towards how can we not only enhance our ensembles, but also raise the artistic level of them as well. So the ensemble is by far the biggest lesson I would take away from it.
I totally agree with that. And I would say the particular focus on learning and teaching, and Ron mentioned this yesterday, but that the biggest influence we can have on a child is the daily experience we give them, and that is primarily through our sessions.
And for sure, the ensemble, and to build on that, is that the power of music gives all of our kids a voice and a confidence that transcends differences and celebrates diversity in every sense of the word. And so for us, that sense of ensemble has really played that role as well.
I think that what I want to aspire to my students from El Sistema is actually what transformed to my own life, the belonging part, to feel belong to something and empowered, but also the sense of the progress, that you think that you can always get better, and the collective practice that you are not alone in this planet. You actually can always feel that someone can sit next to you and have the same success and fears. La pregunta es cuál es tu conexión cortamente con el sistema como lo sientes.
Sí. Es la posibilidad cierta de poder no solamente impactar tu vida, sino poder ser modelo para otros, conectar con otros.
The possibility now of the trust your life, but also the possibility to become a role model of others.
Beautiful. Well, let's meet these programs. I've asked each of our panel members to take a grossly inadequate 5 minutes to give us a quick introduction to this program that is El Sistema inspired. And we'll start with Tina.
Okay, well, Orchestra started in 2007. We looked to see if there are other programs like ours, that the sort of a model out there, and we could find none outside of South and Central America. So my co-founders and I, we made it up. We decided how we wanted to transfer the joys and the passion and the commitment and the dedication and the discipline and the excellence to Canada. So we started with 27 kids, and now we serve over 800. I think Eric was asking to show areas that we developed the program that were similar to Venezuela and dissimilar to Venezuela, and how that evolved. Again, because we had no one really else to follow except El Sistema in Venezuela and some of the programs in other Central and South American countries, we decided, having been professional musicians in orchestras and experienced other politics and bureaucracies, we decided straight away we did not want to align ourselves with a school board, a university, a professional orchestra, any bureaucracy. We very naively, because we knew no better, decided we would build ourselves and so that we could then partner with them as equal partners. Fortunately, that's happened. But oh my gosh, I look back and I think, gosh, how naive was that? Anyway, so that was one area. The other area that because we have 4 school boards in Ottawa, we wanted to make sure it was a community program, not based in one school or one small area, that the kids from all across the community, that demographic of that community, would meet, because that's what we wanted to create. So that created obviously some other challenges because we wanted that they had to get there independently. So that creates a challenge. And that made us realize that we did not want to hold the program every day after school. It was simply too much. The kids don't get out of school till 3 or 3:30. It's -40 in the winter. So we had to figure out the best logistics to create a winning program. And then we evolved the attendance. We sort of tipped the Venezuelan model on its head. And we have what we call our kid-powered way of being. So as the kids are older, they choose how much dedication they want to have towards our program, whether they come 2, 3, or 4 times a week. And the more they dedicate their time, the more they commit, the more they gain. And that's a life lesson in itself. And so I'd like just to very quickly show the video, if it's possible, because it shows the role of Abreu. When we were here with him in 2009 when the Simon Bolivar Orchestra came to Toronto to receive the award. And we had the privilege of meeting him and being involved with the players. And this is a little bit of an excerpt from it, and also highlighting the global community building of El Sistema and the privilege that we've had to be part of that.
So well. It's a trio.
Bueno, venimos de Ottawa a ver los conciertos de la orquesta de Simón Bolívar y a conocerte a ti.
¿Ya tocan algo?
Sí, bueno, tocamos una pieza.
Cuando encontramos experiencias como esta, donde ya vemos en este trío tan hermoso, vemos una semilla luminosa de lo que tiene que ser una comunidad musical. Ellos van a ser músicos. Y ese es uno de los destinos más gloriosos a que puede aspirar un ser humano en la sociedad. El ser un creador, el ser un artista. Muy bien, bravo, bravísimo. Bravo, 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 bien.
Orchestra creates possibility. Students of orchestra have their own unique challenges and come from many different backgrounds. And orchestra teaches them that with hard work, anything is possible. It starts off with practicing their instruments, and then they apply it to all aspects of their life. Orchestra has created endless possibilities for me, as well as for everyone in the orchestra family.
Thank you, Tina. Ron.
I want to talk about my program in Sweden, but before I just give you that, I want to tell you that after working in Greenland for 3 years in an orphanage in a children's home in Numanak, I got a call from Maestro José Antonio Abreu to go for a meeting. And in that meeting, it was Camilla Sarner, who is one of the founders of El Sistema Sweden. And I went to that meeting, and in that meeting, they were asking that they are starting a Sistema program in 2010. During that time, in 2011, I was already in Greenland. So then he asked, they really need some support to develop a Sistema in Sweden, because Maestro Gustavo Ramelli was the chief conductor of the Gothenburg Symphonic. And he was going to Los Angeles, and they wanted to create a camp in Sweden. It was called Side by Side and all that. And in that meeting, a maestro just looked at me like that and said, "Ron, do you want to go to Sweden?" And I was, yes. And then he said, "You can go for a year to Sweden." And that was the plan. So I came to Sweden for 1 year, but now it's been 11 years there. So I came to Sweden, and during that time of working with El Sistema in Sweden, now the Sistema Sweden organization is in more than 32 municipalities with more than 10,000 kids involved, and then the programs starting with the Gothenburg Symphonic and a campus called Side by Side, I'm going to mention. But during my first visits to El Sistema Sweden, I started to work there. I went to Stockholm, and in Stockholm I saw a huge big number of refugees arriving from Middle East and Afghanistan. And I was on the train with Maestro Ruben Kova, who is one of the great teachers of El Sistema, and Franka Verhagen, who is my mentor. And I saw the kids traumatized in a shock when I saw them face asking for a banana and water, and they were an accompanying minor. And I was sitting there because I already knew it by Maestro José Antonio that I was planning to come to Sweden after Greenland, and I saw that. I just have in mind, they feel lost. They feel they need to be included into a society or new world for them. And I say, if I come here to Sweden, that was already in plan in January 2016, I will come and create an orchestra for them, because if I know something is the way to feel, be part of something, it's orchestra and choirs, collective practice. So that's how Dream Orchestra started. I would like to have and Dream Orchestra is a non-profit organization. Sistema in Sweden exists in the whole, but then it was not a program for older kids, because it was from kids for the primary school, and we wanted to create a program for kids who are a little bit older and accompany minors, and that's how Dream Orchestra started. And we have kids from more than 30 different countries and more than 27 different languages. And Ukrainians, we have students who play with their parents because they arrive from Ukraine, from Afghanistan, from Syria, from Palestine. We have from them around more than 400 kids at the moment at the program. And we have 32 nationalities and 20 different languages. And the importance or the uniqueness of our program is also the parents are part of the program playing, especially in the introduction and the junior, because they come to a new country, like the mother that you saw from Ukraine, they don't have friends. And we also saw that they were waiting outside for the kids. And it was quite difficult to know then to connect. What's best way to do it is playing together. So, and in Sweden is an important culture part that is called fika, where the people socialize. And through that, I took serious the vision of Maestro José Antonio Abreu, then developing in Dream Orchestra is storytelling and also connect with another methodologies to learn from Europe's and Greenland's. And here is one of my program where I work and live in Greenland. And now have the opportunity that we use music as a tool for social change, but the most important is that we also work for the excellence, and we also have the opportunity to that every child have a meaningful part. This is our camps that we do every year, so I conduct 2,500 kids coming to play together from all around the world, because we believe that music is not luxury, and music is a human right that we need to have, and especially in these days in the world where there are so many words and people trying to show the diversity is not important. So El Sistema vision and what we do in Dream Orchestra is to empower the voice of every kid.
Thank you, Ron. Nick?
Yes, so Orchids was founded in 2008 by Maestra Maren Alsop when she came to Baltimore. And we're unique. We're one of a handful of programs in the United States that are actually run by a symphony orchestra. Next slide, please. Really, like El Sistema, we are founded with the idea of making music accessible. Unfortunately, many of our schools in the United States don't have music, don't have instrumental programs, limiting our students with that opportunity. So we are founded with the idea of how can we make music accessible across many of the schools in Baltimore City. Also, it's very similar to El Sistema, how can we use music as that vehicle for students to cultivate skills that would be transferable to all areas of their lives? So think creativity and collaboration and teamwork. These are all skills that are developed through the artistic study of the instrument. You have some founding year stats there. We started with 30 students back in 2008, just a handful of people to make it all happen. Next slide. Our model is really built on, and one of the first things we learned with orchids in that first year was that we actually weren't getting the students early enough, not young enough. We actually started students in our first year in first grade, but we realized actually we need to go younger. Really thinking about the development of a musical pathway that would take students as young as pre-K all the way through 12th grade and beyond. So our in-school model is that we are immersed during the school day, filling the void for schools not having music programs. Starting early learning music programs for our youngest students pre-K through second grade to have the opportunity to have music in their life. At that point, students are able to matriculate into our after-school music program where they're able to continue their study musically, but also pick their instrument. Get small group lessons, private lessons, but again, everything building towards the ensemble with students coming anywhere from 2 to 4 days a week based on their ensemble level. We have a great summer program that allows our students to continue studying all year long, as well as our initiatives that are really the extra special things that we've learned over the past 18 years that we need to provide, such as sending our students to some of the most prestigious summer camps in the country, such as Interlaken, Tanglewood, Brevard. These are amazing opportunities that can have a transformative impact on our students' development, not just musically, but socially. You know, think about that first time out of Baltimore, or your first plane ride. These have such a great impact on our students. As well as we have a very unique Pathways program that allows our students to receive private instructions with our BSO musicians. Not only musically beneficial, but our students are also able to be on the stage with them playing side-by-side performances that are very, very impactful. Next slide. Just a few stats here. This picture is from our closing of the 15-year anniversary that was conducted by Jonathan Hayward, who is now the new music director of the Baltimore Symphony. We have, I think, a little over 2,000 kids that we're serving this year. We have 48 teaching artists, 100% graduation rate for all of our students that make it through high school. Last year, we performed over 45 concerts through the school year. And we have students actually coming from 71 different schools across the Baltimore region to participate in our after-school program. And that is Orchids.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, I forgot. Can I just mention this last slide really quick? This is a couple of pictures here from our Pathways program. You can see our students playing side by side with the BSO musicians, as well as engaging with some of the most world-famous guest artists. Last year, our students got to play side by side with Yo-Yo Ma. I mean, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This year, just a month ago, they got to play side by side with Joshua Bell. So what an amazing opportunity, and one of the really big benefits of being part of a symphony orchestra. Thank you.
Hi. So Sistema Scotland also launched in 2008. And when I was thinking about this particular panel and looking back at what we, how we worked with Venezuela, and we had so many lessons and so much of your generosity, which it still lives with us every day. So in those early days, as I say, our team went to Venezuela in 2008 and again in 2010 when we launched Wind, Brass and Percussion. And we were really keen to just learn as much about this model and not reinvent the wheel, and we'll talk more about that later. But we went to Venezuela, we saw the scale of it, and that really inspired us. But we also saw how embedded it was in communities, and it wasn't, it wasn't over here, it was everywhere. And we started then thinking about how we would translate this to Scotland. And we work now with 4,000 young people across the week in 6 different programs in 5 different cities. And we try, and although our original program in Ratblock was a community of around 3,000, and we work still in Ratblock with 500 young people in that community. And we see them every day, but we see them in school. So our model works with, I'll start that bit again, with babies. We work with babies and their carers and parents. That then goes into nursery. So when they're 3 to 5, they go into preschool. We see every child at least once, if not twice a week. We then go into primary 1, which is pre-instrumental, and that's every child in curriculum time. Primary 2, we start our paper orchestra. So that again came from our friends in Venezuela. We see primary 2s twice a week. One session is general musicianship, and one is building their instrument, leading to paper orchestra. At the end of that year, there's this magical session where they come into the room and the paper orchestra is a real orchestra and they have their real instruments for the first time, my personal highlight of the year. They then go into summer school, very similar, and after school. So our after school runs across all of our programmes up to 4 nights a week. So it's about 10 or 11 hours across the week. We run 48 weeks of the year, so we have 2 2-week pauses, but we also have 1 week where it's focused on our staff training. And something we've really tried from the very beginning, again inspired by Venezuela, is to take that time and really inspire our teaching staff, but also to unite in how we teach in Big Noise, because it is a little bit different. The ensemble is a different approach to many of our staff's maybe previous roles. As we grew, we were in Raploch for 5 years before we grew to our second centre in Govan Hill. And that was a huge lesson for us in terms of how you actually take this blueprint and transfer it into another community. And quickly we realised that we can take some principles, but we can't take a whole programme and roll it out somewhere else. That has to reflect and have the flexibility to allow that community to have its stamp on that. So we then learned that again when we went to Aberdeen, which is logistically quite far away from Glasgow. And the pool of staff is quite different. So how do we flex the programme to fit the context in Aberdeen? And we started experimenting more with our instrumental makeup. So across Scotland, we are still very much a symphonic programme. We have the full symphony orchestra in Raploch and Govan Hill, but then it looks a little bit different across Scotland. And that led us to actually, how do we use this national spread now to bring young people together, and what does that look like? So my final video, which we'll come to in a minute, is actually our new Big Noise United Orchestra, named by our young people. And we also learned that going from primary school, where we have this kind of bubble of access to children, and you can see them in the school day, you pick them up from the school and they come to after school, then they go off to high school, and there's that risky couple of years where you don't have that same connection. Their parents don't pick them up anymore, so how do you keep that? And we've really tried to lean into that. And the United Orchestra was a bit of a, it's a national orchestra for us as an organisation, but it's also a massive inspiration for the children and young people to keep coming. We've talked about, national youth orchestras, and they are a great fit for some children, but actually they're not for everyone. But children and young people tell us they still want to go out to other communities and make friends and play on big stages. And if they're not able to get into national youth orchestras due to either financial or musical barriers, that didn't sit well with us. So we thought, actually, we can create our own. So we've only run it twice so far. We're learning so much all of the time, but it is just a week for children and young people of all high schools, so 11 plus, come together, and the only ask is that they commit to the programme and they keep coming in high school. If they do that, they're in. So we grapple as well with the question of excellence, and Venezuela really helped us with that, the belonging, with the musical excellence, but actually we are seeing that now as that excellence is on us to plan for those sessions and to give the young people, meet them where they're at and give them a space to bring their 100%, and that's very much the principle we've taken into our national orchestra. In terms of pathways, we now have between 15 and 20 young people who are now back working for us, and only last week had our first graduate come back as a full musician in the programme. So that's really exciting to see those routes and those employment routes starting to really happen for previous participants in the programme. We have a lot of volunteers, so I think 42 volunteers across our programmes, lots of them parents, previous participants, a whole host, and it just adds that rich picture, but also that embedded in the community, that aspiration. So our national orchestra is, I hope you'll see a bit of Venezuela in here, but we are eternally grateful for everything that Venezuela gave to us, especially in those early days, but still, every day. I think we're ready to play
adapting the Venezuelan model to Scotland. Tricia.
So we want to talk a little bit about what you've heard from our panelists is that El Sistema is brought into communities where, because of some perceived need or challenge that children have. And most of our panelists, Nick, Vicky, and Tina, have basically talked about the challenge. Their children that they're dealing with are suffering from lack of economic opportunities, from lack of educational access, lack of opportunity, economic challenges. Those are the challenges that those kids are dealing with, as are most of the kids in Venezuela and in many programs around the world. Ron was speaking of an extra challenge in the Dream Orchestra that he founded. The challenges of those children, those unaccompanied minor refugees, was not only poverty and need, like basic need, but also being from a completely different place and being lacking any kind of access, cultural access or social access. And I wanted to point out briefly that around the world, programs have used the El Sistema model to meet all kinds of needs and challenges that children have. And a few examples of that are Japan, where children are not really facing a lot of economic need and deprivation, but in 2011, when there was a tsunami, a lot of children lost whole towns full of children lost their homes and often their families, and those children were suffering from loss and grief. And Japan, in their wisdom, the officials in that area decided to bring in an El Sistema program to use the comforts and benefits of ensemble music playing as a way to address those children's needs. Other needs, there have been many programs that have used El Sistema to address the need of loneliness, social isolation. Korea is a good example of that. They have a huge national Sistema program, and the need they are addressing is, again, not economic deprivation or lack of opportunity, but social isolation. A lot of the kids are single children, and they go home from school and they study all day, and they're alone most of the time. So that was, and so really mental health is a huge one. Eric,
I can add a quick thing there. The Korean El Sistema is the only country in the world that has also started El Sistema dance and El Sistema drama, and the 3 different programs coordinate.
Yeah, and the other example I thought to mention right now is the need for cultural heritage. There are actually programs
right here in Canada, specifically Sistema New Brunswick, that are recognizing that the children in First Nation areas are in danger of losing their cultural heritage. We saw that also in New Zealand. It is also true in Juneau, Alaska. And in those places, the El Sistema model is brought in with some modifications, pulling in elements of those children's traditional cultural heritage and really giving the kids something that they lacked, they might not have even known they lacked before, but it enriches their lives immeasurably. So all kinds of needs, this model is incredibly flexible and can be adapted for.
Let me throw out a question to the panel that we don't have to answer in a programmed order. We've been hearing about adapting the Venezuelan model, as Vicky was describing, even within different communities within one country. What are some of the challenges you have faced in adapting the Venezuelan model to work for the kids and families where you live?
Can I say, one of the things that for me was really difficult to translate from El Sistema when I came was, first, you arrive to a country, to an environment where they have another culture. And then through that, you have diversity in your classroom where there's so many things happening. Like, for example, in Venezuela, you have the collective practice and the challenge of the social economics and the daily life. But the countries where I'm working in the Middle East or in Sweden, or it was that I could have in a classroom more than 20 languages, with 20 different culture, with 20 different backgrounds, with 20 different post-traumatic situations, where definitely you have to use a strategic of your planning and didactic that's going to build a relationship. But how you build a relationship with a person that you still cannot communicate, because you have music as a universal language, but you need to understand the person to know what that's background, and I think that is a big challenge, of course. And then through that, then you have big other challenges like migration policies. You have other challenges that are budget-wise when you are an NGO. You have so I think then you have to, this is a metaphor or something that I always have in mind. It's like, for example, when you want to cook something and then you go to the supermarket, but you don't have the ingredients that you used to use. So you have to adapt the ones who will make you feel happy and exciting in what you're. So I think the adaptability is also going to know that we are not inventing the wheels, but at the same time that you need to look around what is also existing in that country to be able to respect and order to collaborate, to not say, because that was one of the biggest challenge for me when I came to a country and say, I'm from El Sistema, but does not mean that I'm better than you know? That is very important, just to show that because I'm coming from Venezuela, it's not because I know everything I have to do. I came here to learn. So that was one of the bigger challenges for me to know that there are so many ways to do things. And then when I came to that state, it's opened a really big door to be able to understand the diversity and how to face that.
And if anyone is thinking, how do they do that at the Dream Orchestra? They've prepared a beautiful book that is available that really does make clear how they do that.
It's free, and there are two books. One about storytelling, that is completely free, and the other one is about a learning model, and the other one is also a sociologist's impact, and all of them are free, and we are preparing a new one.
Others?
Yeah. Actually, very similar to Ron. In Canada, well, in Ottawa, our program, we have 62 linguistic and cultural backgrounds represented amongst our children, which creates, obviously, some interesting times. And we want to make sure all the kids feel seen and heard, and that their families do as well. And what we've learned over the years is that it's the music that brings the kids to the program, but it's the community, it's the friendships, it's the joy, it's the engagement, the sense of belonging. I was once asked if I had to choose one word to describe the success of orchestra, what would it be? Belonging. So it's that sense of belonging. So once the kids feel safe, and you've got a relationship that you're building that trust amongst the kids, build that trust amongst themselves, but with the whole team, and that you feel like all of us belong together, then you can start being really creative musically. For example, we commissioned a piece by 7 different Canadian composers from different cultural backgrounds to create a piece called War to Peace. So each composer would have one movement, whether it was war or hope or possibility or togetherness and peace, but from very, very different perspectives and styles. So everybody felt seen and heard. And so for us, it's similar, but it's trust and community.
A quick follow-up note to Tina's mention of belonging. I interviewed a lot of students in El Sistema, Venezuela when we were preparing this book, and over 80% of them, when I asked them about themselves, the first thing they mentioned was their youth orchestra. Before they mentioned playing an instrument, before they talked about themselves personally, their first statement was, I've been a part of this orchestra for 4 years. And then here's other information about me. Vicky, you had a thought.
Yep. In terms of how we translate to our own context, I think identifying your key partners. So for us, on the ground in our communities, it's our schools, and finding a way to work with them sounds really easy, but actually can be really hard. You're in their space, you're there every day, but the impact when you get that working well can be huge. So really basic examples like before holidays, where we know that the structure of the school day not being there for some young people has a huge impact on them and their family. So actually just having that routine check-in with head teachers, who should we be targeting through the holidays? If we don't see them, can we have a walk round? Even if they're not signed up to us generally, we can make that kind of accessible offer for them. Parents and carers and families, not waiting until there's a challenge to phone about, but actually just picking up the phone and building that relationship and giving our staff time to do that in their week, so that it's not like a last minute add-on, but it's there, it's valued as part of the work that we do. And I think if we can get relationships with schools and parents and ourselves working really well, that's the basis for a programme, really. I think having that embedded, really being embedded in the community. And then when we look at external partners, it's a bit of magic and sparkle on the top of what we do day to day. But that's the foundations, I think.
And something about knowing the students. I remember take a teacher to tea.
Take a musician home for tea. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So families sign up for this, and I think they know what they're getting into now, but in the early days, they would sign up and you would go around, and sometimes it was like, mum and gran or mum and auntie or whoever. We take the biscuits, we take the tea, we take their instruments, and it's a chance for us to play really intimate concerts with families and for the child to showcase their learning. But for us, just really to build that trust that I think Tina's mentioned about already. It's fun.
Beautiful. Nick?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the same themes. I think if I had to go back to those early years, I would say it's the formation of the community, the buy-in from the community. And if I had to take a step back, I think that's probably one of the lessons we learned the hard way, is we went into communities that we didn't really fully understand. So how can you build a program on a starting place where you don't understand where you're going into? Having that trust, having that relationship is really critical. And as a fun story, the communities we're into, they actually thought we were undercover cops for the first several months. They're like, what are you guys all doing here? Like, there's just such a distrust. Like, what are these? And then myself and another gentleman named Dan Trahey, two white dudes in West Baltimore. What are you guys doing out here? And I think there was this gap of what is this thing and why is it important? And we're talking about the Baltimore Symphony and all this stuff and violins, and I just think there's just such a disconnect for what we were trying to do to where the community was, that bridge had to be built. And that took some time. It wasn't really until the kids started to make some music with their instrument that the community started to come together. They started to realize this is not an after-school program like they've normally seen in previous years. This is something unique and special. And that's when I feel like the sense of community really started to come together.
We have a terribly small window of time to take a question or two from the audience. If there is some urgent question that must be asked in this rare opportunity, throw up a hand and we'll get your question. If there's not, we got plenty of other things to...
Let's just say many more words.
Yes. Can you shout it out just a little louder?
All your programs are so wonderful. They're in areas of need, right? You're dealing with kids who are somehow challenged. It's so beautiful to see what the result is. And I would like to see this for all kids. Yeah. It's such a tragedy that we've taken music out of our schools. Yeah. Because, I was in band and it was the most fantastic thing. Fantastic thing. Is there a program for everybody? I'm looking at your kids and thinking they're the rich ones, like they are really the rich ones. And I see my grandkids and, how do you engage all these kids into a program like this?
For those who couldn't hear, it was a beautiful appreciation of
yes.
The power of these programs and a wish that it could be extended more widely and every young person have an opportunity to grow up inside a healthy artistically alive community like these. Any thoughts about the expansion? Yeah.
I have to say that what Maestro Abreu, he was really clear that he wanted to expand this around the world. And I think many of the people, like if you go to Venezuela and see right now the new generation of the children orchestra, I with the permission, I have to say, even it's better than the before. And before, like, it's always like an amazing opportunity. But what I could say is that we all got inspired and developing this all around the world. And what we need to do, and I think it's our work, and we have to take seriously, is to bring this into a political curriculum discussion of schools and educations, and bring it, because we are not just in art sector. This is an important to bring this discussion to an education ministries and things like that, because the way to answer your question is to give access to everyone, is that every school has the possibility to connect to an existing model or vision of philosophy and method that are existing, and how get inspired locally. And I always like these terms, local, because it's exactly to be in your area, but things globally. And just look around if it's in Toronto and New Brunswick, in Glasgow or Aberdeen or in any part of the world as having a program, how they can get inspired. And I think in that way is our work. We have to spread, and I think that's so incredible that we are here. Gould Foundation is making this conference, because this is one way to be loud and have a voice to the people who have to hear. The way to create access is also open the door and bridge to organization to know what we do.
Just to add to that, and to give a different picture, actually in Scotland, music tuition is still free in schools for all children who want it. So that raises a different question in terms of, there's music tuition and what that offers, but actually Sistema, I think, offers something different again. It's about the whole child, and I know what you're asking, but to come back, I guess, to some of the founding principles for us is that this work is targeted in communities of most need, and I think performs a different function. So I think, for me, this is best practice for all children. The way that we work is great for all children. I think that's what you're saying, but actually it's beyond music being free and accessible in schools. It's about that holistic wraparound approach. But I don't think the two are as related as we think in terms of cost and accessibility, and its approach, I think, is the key difference.
Sí. Cuando el maestro, ya siendo adulto, pensó la idea del sistema, no lo pensó solo para Venezuela.
When the maestro José Antonio was already an adult, he thought the El Sistema was not just to the Venezuelans or to Venezuela.
El maestro, como fiel creyente, él estaba convencido que en el ser humano reposa un alma bella, es la naturaleza y la idea natural del ser humano.
That one's, I will listen. The Maestro Abreu, deep inside, was really know that they was about the human soul and the beauty of the human soul.
En el corazón del niño reposa lo bueno.
In the heart of a child, it's in it is a good things inside him.
Y la idea de la música es que la podamos organizar de manera que toque el alma bella del niño.
And the idea of the music is that the music can touch the soul of a child.
Y el arte es una idea universal.
The art is a universal art, universal.
Quiere decir que en Venezuela, en China, en Japón, en Canadá,
That's mean that in Venezuela, in China, or Japan, or Canada,
el sistema se puede adaptar porque es una concepción flexible.
the systems can be adaptable because it's a flexible,
Adaptable, flexible.
adaptable and flexible.
Thank you. Just one comment for Tina. In all these aspirational statements we're making, I don't want to overlook the fact the work is really hard. Extremely hard. I think all of us would agree it's the hardest undertaking we've ever taken in our lives, both to make it viable pragmatically in cultures that don't care so much about these aspirational ideas, and it's hard educationally to draw kids into programs where classical music is not an immediate attraction to kids. The great marvel of Venezuela is that 1 million kids have seen examples that inspire them to want to move toward that, and very few places in the world have been able to accomplish that. Yes?
What you were saying is reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Abreu is, teach a child the beauty of music and music will teach them the beauty of life. I just love that quote. For us, to answer more specifically your question, in Ottawa, particularly where we started in basically Chinatown, West Centertown in Ottawa, which was a very underprivileged area back when we started in 2007. It has since really been gentrified, not completely gentrified. It's still very much Chinatown, but it's changed. So we have, and even right at the beginning, you would buy a house. If a doctor bought a house and the kid went to the school, and that child was best friends with a new refugee. Are we going to turn away a doctor's child because they earn a lot of money? Of course not, because that's building more barriers. So what we did was we created a system where if the family had a good income, they would make a contribution to help other children. And what that does is it really mixes everybody up. Again, more, 62 languages and cultural backgrounds, but much more deeply than that, societally. So I think that's important. That was important to us. And the other aspect is, and I know a lot of programs have programs in schools as well, and that changes the culture and expectations of not just the children, but the parents and the teachers and the culture of the school.
My only thought is I loved your question. It should be for everyone in the world, regardless of class, race, it should be for every child. Unfortunately, the tendency in a lot of North American and European countries is away from thinking about the arts as essential in schools and for education, and toward thinking about more technical and scientific STEM versus STEAM. But I think as our panel has all pointed out, the power of what we've seen today, the power of actually doing this, when it's presented right and when it's vivid in front of your eyes, is very, very compelling. So I can remember that Maestro Abreu used to say, if anyone was interested in what El Sistema was and might have been a contributor in some way, he would say, don't even talk to me about contribution, just come see the work. Just come and see it. And then, of course, after that, he would have made another lifelong fan of El Sistema. So I would just urge you all, is there a question or no? I mean, I would urge you all to be part of this campaign of spreading this word. Go to YouTube, watch the Abreu videos, watch the videos of the Simón Bolívar in Venezuela, which is their top youth orchestra. And I guess we all just need to be consistent, relentless ambassadors for this idea that this is an amazing and generative thing for all kids around the world.
And in our closing seconds, I want to invite each of our panelists to speak a message back to our heroes in Venezuela, who have done so much, continue to do so much for so long, and we happen to have a healthy representative of El Sistema Venezuela. And so my message for you to take home to your colleagues is thank you for the most powerful example of the way the arts can change the world that I've ever seen.
Gracias.
Others?
Yeah, I'd say thank you for showing us the light here a little bit. I mean, without this model, I don't think we would have seen what is possible. That there's a new way of music education. There's a new way of making music that have a greater impact than just the notes on the page. And because of Venezuela, we now have that in front of us to guide us. Thank you.
Similarly, thank you for your generosity in the early years, the inspiration. And we have a saying that is not an Abreu quote, but it's something that we very much feel from Venezuela, which is that you're part of a family, and often we'll say you can't really quit big noise, you can just not come for a while. So thank you for inspiring us.
Gracias.
And from Ottawa Orchestra, the change has been transformative to our kids, to our families, to our team, to the city. It has really transformed the way the people see the power of music, the power of children, and how the possibilities of changing the world through music and through teamwork. It's just been magic. Thank you.
Lo voy a decir en español y luego hago una traducción muy pequeña. I will translate very quickly. Quiero agradecer al sistema y al maestro y a todos los maestros que son parte del sistema, a su equipo, a la gente que siempre hace que Venezuela cambie la vida de tantos niños como cambió la mía. Desde niño nunca imaginé que un instrumento iba a no solamente transformar mi vida, sino que ahora transforma la vida de muchas personas que están en situaciones de riesgo o personas que no conocían la belleza del arte. I just want to say thank you very much to El Sistema, to Maestro José Antonio Abreu, to give this opportunity to a child and myself to be able to have an instrument. I never imagined that I will become a person that I am, thanks to El Sistema. And now I'm able to transmit and give this access to other people. They are passing for different ways. So that's the beauty of the miracle of the vision of Maestro José Antonio. I think 50 years. Happy birthday, El Sistema. Thank you very much.
Thank you. El último discurso público del maestro José Antonio, él dijo esto: tengamos tranquilidad y paz, porque todas las crisis se superan.
The last interview or speech the Maestro José Antonio had, he says, please have calm and peace, because every crisis you can overpass it.
Lo importante es que aprendamos a amar a nuestros niños.
The most important is that we learn how to love and appreciate our kids, our children.
Thank you to the panel. Thank you for joining us. Oh, yeah.